So again, thank you for joining today's session on navigating loss, understanding bereavement, and ADHD in the journey of healing. Your presence here, whether driven by curiosity, connection, or a heavy heart, reflects great courage. Discussions about bereavement and ADHD can be challenging, and your willingness to explore these intersections is a testament to your strength. For those of us navigating loss with ADHD, the journey can feel overwhelming and isolating. Memories may arrive unpredictably, tasks tied to grieving might feel unmanageable, and emotions may swing from numbness to intensity. These responses are not weaknesses, but reflections of how ADHD shapes our experiences with loss. This webinar is designed to be a supportive space where we can explore this intersection together. We'll talk about the unique challenges that arise when ADHD and bereavement intertwine, while also discovering ways to find grounding, create meaning, and move forward with intention and self-compassion. Together, we'll be understanding bereavement and ADHD. So we'll discuss how ADHD can affect our experiences of bereavement, from quote unquote out of sight, out of mind patterns to the heightened emotional intensity that often comes with ADHD. I'll share grounding techniques, organizational tips, and creative methods for remembering and honoring loved ones in ways that resonate with both our neurodiversity and cultural values. And grief doesn't have to be an isolated experience, so we'll talk about the importance of building connections with others. This session is not about fixing grief or ADHD. It's about embracing where you are, learning tools to support yourself, and understanding that your experience is valid and worthy of care. I invite you to participate in whatever way feels comfortable, whether that means sharing your thoughts or simply being present and listening. So a little bit about me. My name is Fizza Abbas. I'm a Master of Social Work student currently doing my placement at Embodied Resilience, where we focus on creating compassionate, trauma-informed spaces for healing. My journey with grief is a deeply personal one. So after the passing of my father 2.5 years ago, I found myself struggling not only with the loss, but also with the unique challenges of grieving while living with ADHD. And this experience has shown me just how layered and complex the grieving process can be, especially when our minds process emotions and memories in intense and unpredictable ways. So as a South Asian Muslim woman, I've also come to see the power of community and collective support in navigating grief. My work, studies, and life experiences are dedicated to helping others find their own path to healing, one that honors their cultural roots, neurodiversity, and individual needs. Again, I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to share insights, practical tools, and a supportive space with each of you. Together, I hope we can explore ways to honor our loved ones and ourselves as we walk through the journey of grief. So before we get into our content for today, I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. We honor the land and water keepers who still oversee and protect. We honor the pain and the hardship you have and yet still face. In this illegal occupation and colonization of sacred land and life, we give thanks that you have not given up this fight. We honor the Petun, Huron-Wendat, Mississaugas, and Métis, the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe of the Wampum of Peace. We honor you for choosing conservation and preservation and join with you in vowing to take care of this land, flora, and fauna equally. I also honor the indigenous peoples from Turtle Island to Palestine, from Kashmir to the Congo and Sudan. As a settler, indigenous to other lands, I recognize that my own journey of healing and liberation is intertwined with yours. We stand in solidarity with those whose land and lives have been stolen, whose communities have faced displacement, oppression, and violence. The enduring resilience and strength of the Palestinian people, the peoples of Kashmir, the Congolese, and those in Sudan echo the universal struggle for justice, dignity, and the right to live freely on their land. Our collective fight for sovereignty, freedom, and justice is bound together across borders and histories. This land teaches us about cycles of loss and renewal, offering wisdom that resonates deeply with those navigating neurodiversity and grief. Just as diversity in thought and experience strengthens our collective resilience, so too does holding space for bereavement. The land has witnessed countless ancestors who mourned, healed, and celebrated before us, reminding us that healing is both personal and collective. By honoring this wisdom, I commit to building communities of compassion and belonging, where we embrace neurodiverse ways of being and create spaces for the transformative power of grief and growth. So just a reflection, just take a few moments to sit quietly and reflect on how you personally honor grief and the land around you. Feel free to write down any thoughts that may arise. How do you connect to the earth and the cycles of renewal in your own grief journey? And if you'd like to share in the chat box, you can as well. I'll just share briefly. The significance of water in my lineage reminds me of its power to nurture and sustain, paralleling my journey of grief. And I think just as the earth renews itself, I do my best to focus on my personal renewal, finding strength in my values of reciprocity and collective healing. And then in moments of loss, I honor the land and my grief by giving myself the permission to feel deeply while nurturing hope, much like planting seeds that will bloom in time. So what is ADHD? First, let's start with a brief overview of ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition that affects both children and adults, and it's often marked by three main characteristics, characterized by emotional intensity, memory challenges, and difficulty with sustained attention. People with ADHD experience emotions very deeply, often more intensely than others. This can make it hard to regulate feelings, leading to emotions that feel overwhelming. We don't just experience sadness, we feel it like a flood. Happiness isn't just joy often, it's euphoria. This heightened emotional sensitivity means that in bereavement, the grief we feel can be overwhelming and deeply consuming. And because of this emotional intensity, grief may feel just as raw months or even years later, long after others have started to feel more quote unquote settled, or a bit of relief from initial intensity. For us, there may not be that natural softening of emotions over time. We might still feel our grief just as vividly, and that's okay. Recognizing this as part of our ADHD journey can help us understand that our experience isn't wrong or quote unquote abnormal. We're simply processing grief through the lens of our neurodivergent minds. And that process may look and feel different than what we expect based on neurotypical patterns. Just a reflection for you, just what's one way you've shown compassion to yourself when emotions feel overwhelming? And if you're open to sharing, please feel free to do so in the chat box.
So one way that I try and give myself compassion is by acknowledging that I do feel things very deeply and that there's nothing wrong with that, because I would often uh, be told, oh, you're too intense as a child, hell, even as an adult. And so I kind of remind myself that intensity is not a bad thing and that there's nothing wrong with feeling very intensely. It just means that I feel developed relationships very deeply. So really kind of trying to remind myself of why I kind of feel that way.
Absolutely. That's a good reminder. Thank you for sharing, Robert. So ADHD often affects both short-term and long-term memory. So you might find it hard to remember certain details or to keep things in mind if they're not directly in front of you, which we sometimes refer to as out of sight, out of mind. For many of us with ADHD, if we don't actively see or engage with something, it can easily slip to the back of our minds. This can even apply to people, our friends, family members, and even loved ones we've lost. In the context of bereavement, this trait can create a very unique experience. We may feel as though the person we lost is still there in some way, only to be powerfully reminded of their absence when something brings them back into our focus. For example, seeing a photo, hearing a favorite song, or walking into a familiar place can all of a sudden trigger an intense wave of grief. And this pattern of quote unquote forgetting and then remembering, accompanied by intense emotional floods, is a common experience for ADHD folks. It can make grief feel like it comes and goes in unexpected and often overwhelming ways. Think about a moment when a memory of your loved one resurfaced unexpectedly. How did it feel? And again, if you're open to sharing, please feel free to do so. For me, like there was a time I heard sometimes I hear sometimes like songs that my dad used to hum. And it feels weird to call him dad. I called him Baba. And it instantly brought me back to the mornings, like when we would spend our mornings drinking tea together. And it felt bittersweet, like a wave of like warmth and longing washing like over me all at once. And I allowed myself to stay in that moment, of course, feeling both sadness and the comfort in remembering him so vividly.
For myself, it's one specific song with my mom is Man, I Feel Like a Woman. And every time I hear that song, I think of my mom because there was myself, my brother, and her ex-husband, Doug, and we're all big guys. I'm the smallest out of all three of us. And I remember we're all standing there and we're serenading my mom to Man, I Feel Like a Woman into chorus line. So these three giant guys doing a chorus line to my mom. And I remember her like laughing so hard she was crying. And when I first heard that song after she had passed away, it was really hard to hear it and not be upset. But as time has gone by, it still hurts, but I can remember the joy behind it. So, like you said, kind of the bittersweetness.
And I can just picture like three very tall individuals singing the song and her laughing. Thank you for sharing that. And Tammy wrote, seeing images or events experienced with the person triggered sadness and physical sensations. Breathe, stay in moment, and accept memory with love and gratefulness. Beautifully said, Tammy. Thank you for sharing that. And that physical sensation, yeah, I can even feel it just thinking about it. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being here. So staying focused on one thing for a long period of time or long period can be challenging. Our attention can wander, and it's often difficult to sit with one emotion or thought for an extended period without our mind moving on to something else. And these traits affect day-to-day life in various ways, often making routines, emotional regulation, and memory more challenging than for neurotypical individuals. For me, it's taken me a long time to come to this realization, and I think I'm still coming to it. And the journey has really been far from easy. That, grief doesn't have an expiration date, nor is it some final destination where you arrive and suddenly you move on. Each person's grief is deeply personal and entirely unique. There's no point in comparing how one person grieves to another. Grief isn't something you get over. It's a lifelong process, one that shifts and evolves over time, drawing us closer to ourselves and deepening our connection to those we've lost. So as we embrace the connection between ADHD and bereavement, I invite you to consider ADHD not just as a challenge, but as a unique lens through which we experience loss. While, ADHD can complicate the bereavement process, it can also offer a raw and intense connection to our emotions and memories, helping us keep our loved ones vividly present in our hearts and minds. Rather than resisting this emotional intensity, I encourage you to embrace it. These emotional waves offer us a powerful way to honor our loved ones with deep clarity and feeling. Bereavement is rarely a linear process, and for those of us with ADHD, it's often a fluid journey rather than a set path. Grief can't be fixed or, overcome in a traditional sense. It evolves. And the unpredictability of bereavement for those with ADHD can be reframed as an adaptive response, offering us the flexibility to grieve authentically on our own timeline. We don't have to follow societal expectations of how grief should unfold. We can honor our own experience and pace. As neurodivergent people, we experience the world in our own unique ways, and grief is no exception. And I've come to see this as a strength by creating spaces where neurodivergent folks can grieve in their own time and on their own terms. We can show others how to do the same, to honor their grief and loss without the pressure to rush through it, and to give themselves the time and boundaries needed to heal in a way that feels right for them. Grief is never easy, but you don't have to navigate it alone. So grief is not just a personal experience, it's deeply intertwined with our cultural identities and traditions. And in this section, we'll delve into the importance of honoring cultural rituals that help individuals process loss in ways that resonate with their unique backgrounds. So cultural rituals such as those seen in the South Asian and Shia Muslim communities play a crucial role in the bereavement process. For example, Majlis serves as a communal gathering for prayer, reflection, and shared grief, creating a sacred space for collective healing. And these rituals help us connect with ancestral knowledge and sacred traditions, offering comfort and emotional release within a supportive environment. Culturally inclusive healing practices ensure that we process grief in ways that reflect our identities and heritage, whether through communal gatherings, storytelling, or shared spaces. These practices remind us that grief doesn't need to be carried alone. They offer connection and support, creating a foundation for collective healing. These rituals also allow us to honor the memory of our loved ones, transforming grief into an empowering force that fosters growth and resilience. And I know you can't see the picture behind this PowerPoint, but it was taken while I was on a pilgrimage, actually, on behalf of my father last year. So now, in connection to culture, community, as I mentioned, plays a key role in transforming grief. Community spaces that understand ADHD's impact on emotional processing help individuals feel seen and supported, especially when navigating the complex emotional terrain of grief. ADHD may present challenges such as heightened emotional intensity or difficulties with organization, but it also offers unique strengths and emotional depth, flexible grieving, and creative expression. These strengths allow individuals to grieve in adaptive and meaningful ways. Again, like we've mentioned, grief is a deeply personal experience, but many cultures view it as a collective process. Collective grief enables communities to share the weight of loss and create spaces where pain is acknowledged and held together. The shared mourning is often rooted in ancestral ties and cultural practices, transforming what might otherwise be an isolating experience into one of belonging and mutual support. In many cases, grief extends beyond the loss of a loved one. It can include the loss of place, identity, or justice, especially for communities experiencing displacement or systemic inequities. These layered forms of grief carry a collective weight, and communities often come together to mourn not just individuals, but shared histories and struggles. Through rituals, storytelling, and collective remembrance, they weave resilience into the fabric of their community. And so in collective grief, healing happens through connection. By mourning together, we honor individual losses while simultaneously strengthening communal bonds. Spaces for shared reflection and meaning making create mutual support and healing. And grief in this context becomes more than just, coping, which, it's never just, you're never going to, it's not coping, it's managing and adapting. So it becomes a transformative force that fosters unity, cultivates resilience, and empowers communities to move towards change. And finally, as we look to integrate cultural practices for healing, sharing circles and holistic approaches such as facilitated storytelling with spiritual and traditional teachings are vital. For Indigenous communities, the bonds formed through knowledge sharing and connection provide solace, resilience, and overall well-being. The intergenerational transmission of stories and teachings alongside a deep connection to ancestral lands is fundamental in the healing process. Culturally inclusive healing practices emphasize the beauty and strength of diverse traditions. They remind us that grief, while universal, is also deeply personal and rooted in who we are and where we come from. And these practices provide the space to honor our loved ones, find comfort in connection, and embrace resilience and transformation. Take a moment to reflect on any small rituals or practices that have helped you during times of grief. And if you're open to sharing, you can unmute yourself or use the chat box.
So for me, when people pass away, so I'm Métis, and I like to smudge. So kind of just sending a prayer to Creator, and also kind of just trying to kind of cleanse the area of energy, kind of getting back to baseline. So I smudge.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Robert. And Andrea mentioned planting a tree in memory. Thank you, Andrea. Tammy wrote celebration with food, candles with pictures, place an object with the person. I love that. Food is a huge part of, gathering, and I really appreciate that. You sharing that. Catherine wrote being with friends, loved ones, laughing, crying, healing. Yes. So just, consider how you can incorporate these rituals into your own grief journey. And again, remember that your grief is valid. So in this final section, we'll explore practical tools to help you navigate grief while living with ADHD. These tools are designed to address common challenges like memory issues, emotional intensity, and the need for structure and support. Grieving while living with ADHD can feel like an emotional roller coaster, but there are strategies that can make the process more manageable. One of the main challenges of grieving with ADHD is the impact on memory, especially when it comes to remembering significant moments or people we've lost. ADHD can cause memory lapses, and the unpredictability of grief can make it hard to recall important dates, anniversaries, or even moments with loved ones, which can intensify feelings of loss. To combat this, we can use memory aids and rituals to help us keep our loved ones present in our lives. So one way that many people with ADHD may find helpful to process grief is through memory boxes or rituals. These tangible ways of holding on to memories allow us to engage our senses, manage our emotions, and create lasting connections to our loved ones. As was mentioned in the chat box as well, creating a space with objects, photos, and mementos that remind you of your loved one can serve as a gentle, consistent reminder that honors their presence. This space allows you to revisit memories at your own pace, whether it's a small box filled with their favorite items or a full grief altar. This physical space can be a comforting way to engage with memories. Set reminders on your phone or calendar for specific days or times to reflect, look at photos, or write a memory. Scheduling these moments can help ease the shock of sudden emotional waves. And this structured approach ensures you honor your loved one while also protecting yourself from emotional overload. Keeping a journal where you record memories, thoughts, or reflections whenever grief surfaces can be incredibly healing. Using prompts like, a happy memory of them is, or I feel closest to them when, to make it easier to dive in during intense moments. Journaling can also help externalize feelings that might otherwise feel overwhelming. And again, that was mentioned in the chat box, another ritual might be lighting a candle on a specific date or sharing a favorite food or song that reminds you of your loved one. And these rituals offer ways to feel connected to the memory of your loved one. What's one object, symbol, or ritual that helps you feel connected to your loved one, if you're open to sharing? And I can start. I actually thought to bring this like about 30 minutes before the session started, was that for me, I'll show you up close, but this is a stone from the shrine of my ancestor in Iraq, and which has really helped me stay grounded and feel connected to my loved ones. And I always remember that I'm not alone. And often in different spaces, I'll keep this in my backpack, or depending on like if I'm in a class, we have sometimes we have a bundle in the middle. So, and we're allowed to bring something. So sometimes I bring this piece of shrine, my ancestors' shrine. So, and it just reminds me that I'm not alone. Andrea wrote my garden. Thank you for sharing, Andrea.
There's, sorry, go
Sorry.
ahead.
No, I was just thinking, I really want to start a garden. That's what I've been thinking about that.
Yeah. So a couple. So when my wife's service dog passed away, we had him cremated, and so we took some of his ashes and put it into a necklace for him that my wife wears around her neck. And for myself, my mom passed away, and we were talking about where to scatter her ashes. And she loved Banff. That was kind of where she was happiest. So we've talked about going to Banff and scattering her ashes there. So not having a memento, so to speak, but the memory of knowing that we've scattered her ashes in a place where she was happiest.
That's beautiful. I love the necklace idea, like that meaningful memento that, your wife carries with her. And then the as well, that the ashes spreading the band. Thank you for sharing that. Tammy wrote a picture or piece of jewelry from the person. Thank you for sharing, Tammy. I actually keep my dad's like old watches. He loved watches, so I keep them in a box. They're right next to me right here. But that just reminded me of that. Thank you for sharing. So, grief often brings, like we've already mentioned, intense emotions that can be hard to process. And for those with ADHD, these emotions may feel especially overwhelming. And one of the most effective ways to, manage this may be through creative outlets for you. So art can provide a safe and structured way to channel intense emotions, turning them into something tangible and meaningful. Whether through drawing, writing, or music, creativity provides a way to channel emotions and express what words can't capture. So using art to honor memories and express emotions through collages, paintings, or digital mood boards are great options. So for each memory that surfaces, you can consider adding a color, a shape, or image to your art project, giving it life and a lasting presence. Art may allow you to externalize grief in a way that feels manageable and purposeful. For those who find writing challenging, recording voice messages for close friends or yourself is a great alternative. You can talk through memories or emotions. This form of storytelling is often easier for ADHD minds, offering connection without the need for structured writing. We've talked a little bit about music. So, using music that connects you to your loved one, incorporating it into your daily routines, movement, whether dancing or gentle stretching, can help process emotions physically when they become overwhelming. Music and movement together can help release grief from the body, providing a more holistic way to manage and adapt to our emotions. I know we touched upon it. It came up in our reflections already, but have creative outlets like art or music helps you process emotions and grief? Music and water.
For me, oh, for me, my mom loved to dance, and so like she would dance around the kitchen and stuff. So sometimes when I'm feeling grief, I will like kind of put on music and I'll dance. Sometimes with my daughter, because my mom used to dance with me in the kitchen, and it's a way to kind of feel connected to her.
Thanks for sharing that, Robert. I'm like, that sounds really fun, actually. I think I might do that with my mom um, as well. I also have been thinking about actually putting my dad used to write poetry. So I've been actually thinking like during this winter break, I might turn it into a book, like put it on Canva or like some sort of, design it and then get it printed. So we'll see. So sensory experiences can help you stay anchored during moments of grief when emotions become overwhelming. And so here are a couple of techniques, whether it's keeping a physical object such as a smooth stone or a piece of fabric that, reminds you of your loved one, use it as a grounding tool during intense emotions by holding it and taking a few deep breaths. This touchstone can serve as a comforting reminder that connects you to their memory. Or you can choose specific sensory experiences like a candle, a piece of their clothing, or a favorite scent that reminds you of your loved one. Engage with these items mindfully to feel grounded in your memories and emotions. These items become small anchors to help you stay connected, even in emotional waves. Structure can often feel like the enemy of grief. Grief is messy, nonlinear, and unpredictable. But creating a simple structure can help balance the chaos of emotion with the practical needs of daily life. For those living with ADHD, structure may seem hard to maintain, but even small routines can help us feel more in control, whether it's setting a daily time for a grounding exercise, scheduling reminders for self-care, or writing down your emotions in a journal. Structure doesn't have to be rigid. It can be fluid, just like your grief. So, creating a daily intentions list, like each morning, writing a simple intention that grounds you for the day. So, for example, today I will find one small moment of peace, or I will honor my loved one by doing something they enjoyed or loved. This simple practice can create structure when emotions feel overwhelming and offer focus when it's hard to move forward. Body doubling is a supportive strategy where someone works alongside a person with ADHD, for example, particularly during emotionally challenging tasks like those related to bereavement. By offering activation through the presence of another person, it often helps overcome the initial difficulty of getting started while also supporting emotional regulation by providing a calming presence during overwhelming moments of grief. Additionally, body doubling can boost motivation as the social connection and external cues help individuals with ADHD stay engaged and manage the emotional intensity of their grief. So you can ask a friend or a family member to join you in activities that help with grieving, like tidying up a memory box or organizing photos. The presence of another person can help keep you focused and emotionally supported during these moments. With ADHD, we often feel like we're not doing enough, recognizing and celebrating small accomplishments, even if they're as simple as getting out of bed or having a conversation with someone about your grief is important. ADHD can make social interactions feel challenging, especially when you're grieving. You might find it hard to reach out to others or feel disconnected because your mind is often racing with emotions. However, building and maintaining supportive connections is vital to healing. In times of grief, it's okay to lean on community. And I know I spoke to it earlier, but whether that's friends, family, or a group that understands the intersection of ADHD and bereavement, finding people who can hold space for you without judgment is essential. Again, storytelling, whether personal memories or tales of the loved one, can preserve their spirit and provide emotional relief. Reflect on and share stories about your loved one, either by journaling, voice recordings, or video diaries. So storytelling can help ground memories and allow you to revisit them in structured way. For those of us with ADHD, storytelling can offer a creative and non-linear way to process grief, bypassing some of the hurdles that linear journaling may present. And pair up with a friend or a family member for regular check-ins. Knowing someone will reach out can be reassuring and provide gentle accountability when feelings of isolation arise. A support buddy can offer emotional comfort and a reminder that you're not alone. Finally, let's talk about the importance of self-compassion. Like I mentioned before, ADHD often comes with this heavy dose of self-criticism, feeling like we're not doing enough. That imposter syndrome creeps in. We're not grieving, quote unquote, properly, or not handling life's responsibilities as we should. But the truth is, everyone's grieving journey is unique, and it's especially important to be kind to ourselves when we're navigating ADHD and bereavement at the same time. Being compassionate with ourselves doesn't mean ignoring our feelings, but rather acknowledging the difficulty of the journey while offering ourselves the grace to move through it in our own time. When you feel overwhelmed by emotions or the tasks of life, practice speaking to yourself with kindness, acknowledging, that this is hard and you are doing the best you can. Take short breaks throughout your day to breathe deeply and reset. Mindfulness can help you stay connected to your body and calm your mind. Take a moment to reflect on one thing that you can do for yourself today, no matter how small, that shows self-compassion. How can you be kind to yourself as you continue to grieve? And again, if you're open to sharing, please feel free to do so.
I think for me, recognizing that grief comes in all different kind of shapes and forms. We just, like I said, had to put down, my wife's service dog and then our other dog, literally like 2 months after. And it's been really hard. And it's really hit my wife in a really hard way. And I mean, I love the animals as well, but not in the way that she did. She was bonded. Obviously, he's our service dog, but even though I don't feel it kind of as intensely as she does, I've never made her feel bad about how kind of strong her grief is, and I've never been like, oh, it's just a dog, like, you need to get over it. I've always I'm very mindful of this is a very heavy thing for her. And so really just trying to kind of, remember that we all grieve in different ways, and honoring that. And another thing is also that when my mom passed away, a year later, on the anniversary of her death, I had really bad brain fog, and I was really irritable. And I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? Because at that point, I was actually medicated for my ADHD. And my wife was like, do you realize what it is? And I was like, no. She's like, it's the anniversary of your mom's death. And I was like, holy shit. It didn't even kind of like, I didn't even connect it because, like I said, out of sight, out of mind, but my body knew. And it was kind of going through that process. So kind of just allowing yourself to check in, and have that compassion of knowing that you may not be at your best, and that's okay. And just kind of taking it day by day. So very rambly way of saying that.
No, and beautifully said. I was thinking how you are that support person. You're that support person right now for your wife, and she's that support person for you. And also that whole out of sight, out of mind. He's like, your body remembered, your body like remembered that grief. And so it's just interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah, that brain fog as well. Tammy mentioned connect to the outdoors, see the snow, feel the cold air, hug my husband, and cuddle with my dog. Thank you for sharing, Tammy. Reminds me I have to go for a walk today. Andrea mentions take care of my body, sleep, nutrition, hydration, and rest. Absolutely. I have this big water. I don't even know, like, well, it's not even a bottle. Catherine wrote, cuddle my dog, hug my child, hug my loved ones, go for a walk and breathe deeply. Go to the beach, put my feet in the water. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Catherine. So I just want to acknowledge, your courage in being here today. Grieving with ADHD can feel overwhelming, but there are tools, strategies, and most importantly, communities to support you. Healing is a layered process, and every small step matters. So in just a moment, I'm going to share a video, and it's called How to Lose Everything. And it explores the depth of heartache and loss. And for those of us with ADHD, these experiences, again, can feel especially vivid and intense. So this video reflects on resilience, hope, and the transformative journey through grief. And as you watch, consider how its themes align with your own experiences and how ADHD might shape your path through loss and healing. If this video sounds like it may be too much, again, please feel free to take a step back. The video is 4 minutes long. So I'm just going to play it in just a second.
This is what I know. First, your heart will break. You will lose a partner, a sibling, a parent, a child, your health, your home, your work, your voice. You will start by staying in bed. Being awake is the first and hardest thing to get through, and you may ache every minute of the hours in between the relief of sleep. The ache will overwhelm you at times. The ache will press on your chest so hard it might be difficult to move. The ache will shake through your body in uncontrollable sobs. The ache will numb you to all feeling. The ache will want to break things. The ache won't care what does break. Try to wait. The early days of shock need to pass. Fill those days and waking hours with something, anything. It doesn't matter what, as you probably won't remember. If you can, find something that doesn't hurt you or others. That might not be possible. I recommend hours of serialized television, 7 seasons of something. Don't worry if you don't move from the couch or your bed. Wait. Forgive yourself. Remember that disconnection can protect you when you need it, and joy is not a denial of your loss. Eventually, being awake won't hurt as much. This may be months later, or a year, 2 years. But one day you will be awake and it'll be okay. For moments, and then for hours. I can't tell you that it will get easier, but you will adapt. You will get used to this loss and you will find ways around it and with it. Some forms of grief will run their course. Some will never leave you. Some days when grief comes toward you as a wave, you will have to stand still and let the impact roll into your body, and there will be no choice but to welcome its presence. Some days you will see grief coming and you'll be able to say, now is not a good time, and it will listen. Sorrow can be a stubborn friend, but also a patient one. Know that sorrow evolved from joy, that she knows and remembers happiness as well as she understands where tears come from. For that, sorrow is a powerful and wise emotion, and you will be wiser with her. You will be tender in new spots and harder in others. You won't be the same person as before. I'm sorry. That too is a loss. I will not tell you that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. I will not tell you your loss is for the better. You will lose everything, and it will be different. Remember, you have the right to honor the memory of the person, place, time, and potential you lost. To remember as often as you need what you love, what you miss, what still brings you joy, what still hurts your heart. And you have the right to forget. Truly, the most painful memories are yours to let go of when you're ready. You're not dishonoring those memories by letting them go, trust me. If you like, find a place for them, for safekeeping. Tell a person close to you and let them know you're telling them this story for them to remember and you to forget. Write a letter and drop it unaddressed in the mailbox or into the flames of a fire or under a mound of dirt at the base of a tree. Walk into the woods, dig a hole, and cry or sing or sob or tell your most painful memory into the earth. Or tell me. Tell me right now to this page and I will remember for you. I will remember the name of your child. I will remember the laugh of your sister. I will remember the place where your home stood, just as you will remember me.
So just before we close, I invite you to take a moment of silence to reflect on a comforting memory of your loved one. It could be something small, a moment that made you smile, or a favorite tradition you share together. And if it feels right, you might also want to imagine a meaningful way to carry your loved one's memory forward in your daily life. Perhaps through a ritual, an object, or an action that brings you comfort. Let that reflection fill you with peace, even if just for a moment. Thank you again for being a part of this session and sharing this space. Grief can be an isolating journey, but having community, even virtually, reminds us that we are not alone in our experiences. And if you would like to stay connected or seek ongoing support, please reach out to Embodied Resilience. We are here to help, and I encourage you to follow up with any questions or resources you may need. Take care of yourself and remember that your grief is valid. Thank you again for your time today. Thank you, Tammy. Take care.
Thank you, Fizza. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Catherine.
Nice to see you, Tammy.